everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 13th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Liana. How you doing, Liana?
I'm doing fantastic. Really excited to be back and talk through everything that happened on the feeds.
Yes, we are here to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 24 live feeds. It was day 38 in the house, and we got some things to talk about.
Some big-brained plans, perhaps?
Yes, some big plans to talk through. You're not going to want to miss this one because you're going to be confused if you don't, and you're still going to be confused even if you do.
That is correct.
So let's get into it. So as we know, that Taylor won the HOH, and she had a bit of a doozy of a first night, intending to nominate Turner as a pawn, and until telling Turner that she was going to nominate him as a pawn, and he was like, "What if you didn't do that?" She was like, "Okay, that's a good idea. Instead, I'll do Turner and Monty." And then they were both like, "Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong direction." And she was like, "Oh, you wanted me to go in the other direction." They're like, yeah, the other one. And she was like, "Okay, fine, Indy and Terrence." And they're like, "Okay." Whew. Problem is, I already promised Indy and the rest of the women that I wouldn't put them up. Like, "Oh, you did you? Yeah, don't worry about it. I guess I'll just have to immediately go back on that. It's fine."
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was gonna build trust with them, but no, that's okay. I'll just go back on my word. No, it's totally cool. Yeah, so that's where we started today.
Yes, and also there was a big push for Joseph and Kyle to get out of this 5 Swatters plus Terrence alliance, which is a fake alliance that was started a couple of nights ago now with Kyle, Joseph, Indy, Jasmine, and Alyssa. Joseph told the rest of the alliance about it on Thursday morning, and Michael in particular has been like, "I don't want this to continue. I don't want Joseph to be safe and me to not be safe, and Joseph to get all the credit for playing the whole house while I am the one in danger. How about we stop doing the thing that only benefits Joseph?" So they all kind of agreed because Monty's very much on board with that. Even Kyle wants out of this thing because he hates having to lie. They were all pushing Joseph. Let's get you out of this. Let's extract you from the mission. It's time to come home. And Joseph was like, "But I'm having fun."
Joseph, Joseph 25 discovered Big Brother, like the game that Big Brother truly is, he's obsessed. And that's why he wants to keep doing this. He's having just so much fun. And I don't even think he's really thinking what truly are the ramifications for my game, because really great Big Brother players know when to push and they know when to pull back. Joseph just pushes all the time, and he's just so happy to be playing, and that's why he doesn't want to give up this double agent thing. So thinking about it from that perspective, I totally understand his motivation of why he just wants to stay in this espionage situation, because he just really enjoys it.
Yeah, and he's been deep undercover for so long. It's like he's kind of, I think he's a little bit lost himself. We've got to pull him back in. He's in with the drug lords, and he's feeling it a little bit. He's Walter Whiting this a little bit.
He's too far gone. He doesn't know what it's going to be like back, in the real world. He's adapted to this way of life.
So we start the day here on day 38. Taylor has come around to the idea of nominating Indy and Terrence. She said she's going to talk to the camera. She really didn't want to nominate any women, but she feels like she has to. She says Jasmine, really lucky that Taylor would never nominate a black woman. She says she couldn't come into the game because of the cookout, and then completely abandon that way of thinking. So she can't nominate Jasmine. She's really lucky for that. But if one of the nominees come down, then maybe I'll nominate like Alyssa, and maybe we send Alyssa home. Something along those lines, but she's not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what wasn't really settled last night's discussion, or 2 nights ago, whatever, you guys know, is what the backup noms would be, or the
Mhm.
replacement nom, right? Because she already had to go back on her word when it came to Indy. So is she gonna go back on her word with Alyssa or with Jasmine? And those are two things that she feels very strongly that she does not want to go back on.
Yes, exactly. So this is again the setup, and I talked about this yesterday. Is it better for Taylor to take out Alyssa? It certainly is for Joseph. I'm expecting Joseph to be pushing Alyssa a lot because taking out Alyssa would be a huge win for Joseph. And Taylor is definitely open to the idea here. So we'll see how the rest of the day plays out. Brittany's going to talk to Taylor, and Brittany knows that Taylor's target right now is Terrence. She wants Terrence gone because of lots of things, and some of which we'll talk about today. But she plans to nominate Terrence and Indy, and Brittany knows that the rest of the alliance wants Indy out over Terrence. But Brittany wouldn't mind Terrence leaving, and she also just wants to gauge sort of like where Taylor is at when it comes to the rest of the alliance and where she stands in it. So Brittany's like, hey, Taylor, just so you know, like the rest of the alliance, they're going to start pushing their own agendas this week. So I want to make sure that you know that you should do what you want to do. And I will support you, even if the alliance wants to do something different. And Taylor's like, sure. She's like, okay, so what I'm saying is that if you nominate Terrence and Indy with Terrence as the target, then I think that the alliance will vote Indy out anyway. And Taylor's like, yeah, that's fine. So, okay, but I think what I'm saying is that I'm on your side and I will support you, but I don't know if everyone else in the alliance is on the same page as us. And Taylor's like, oh, it's fine. I want Terrence out, but if they vote Indy out, it's whatever.
Yeah, Taylor really doesn't seem to care. And Brittany's like, you should really care because this has ramifications. As the only two women in the leftovers, this is something that's important for us to think about. Indy going home really truly draws a line in the sand. She's alluding to, hey, like, you should give a crap about this.
Yeah, are you down with me to ride out against the other? Should we start thinking about these things maybe? And Taylor's just not picking up on it.
Yeah, no. I heard Joseph later in the day. I think they referred to it as chapter 2 is my inference. So maybe the right language just wasn't used, like you got to talk chapters to Taylor. She's not going to get it if you just allude to it.
Joseph is much better with Taylor because I think that his style of communication is much more effective with Taylor. Now, it's not super effective with most of the rest of the house in terms of like, or maybe not most of the rest of the house, most of the rest of the alliance, unfortunately, for Joseph. But it works for Taylor. I think that, in terms of how Taylor is receptive to plans, at least, she seems to be receptive to very direct, blunt communication. And a lot of it.
Yes.
And if you're just like very upfront about like, this is what you should do and it'll be good, I promise. You don't even need to give reasons. She's down. At least if you're Joseph. So when Brittany's trying to like slowly gauge Taylor's interest, it feels like Taylor's shutting her down because Taylor's not really picking up on it.
Right, exactly. Which, because if you're assuming that the person you're talking to is aware of what you're trying to do, then yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like Taylor's shutting her down, but I don't even know if Taylor's getting it. Because Taylor, come on, you can't. Of course, you need to think about this. You've talked about Final Three with with Michael and Brittany. Like, I know that those thoughts have crossed your mind, but it just in this moment, she seems incapable of thinking like a few steps ahead, which would be very beneficial. Especially, although they don't know about the twist, we do. But even if it is a double, it would be helpful to like think about that.
So the rest of the day prior to the noms, or really prior to a couple of other conversations, really just dealing with the other side of the house, we can kind of generally move through it. Taylor's going to have to go back to Indy and Terrence and tell them that they're going on the block as pawns because she doesn't want to nominate Monty right away. What she tells Indy is that, I'm sorry, I know I told you I wasn't going to put you up, but we discussed Turner. I went to Turner. He told me absolutely not, and I owe him one for having not nominated me when he was HOH. So unfortunately, it's going to have to be you, and a bunch of other reasons about like getting you in the veto and all that stuff. Indy is pissed. I defended her all season, and now she's targeting me, and she's putting me on the list. Well, guess what? I have a new target now, and I'm not going to stop until she's out of this game.
The conversation also with Indy talking to Taylor was giving very much.
That's a good one. Well,
what?
It's sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't know. What are you talking about?
No, there's a very good conversation between Indy and Taylor after noms.
After noms.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, that was truly a thing of joy. But the one before was felt very much the Monty, like when Monty was alluding to having to. It was like, well, just so you know, I would never put. That's just something I would never do. I would never go after you. So I love that is Indy's sort of default defense when anybody like alludes to the fact that they might put her up.
Yeah. So Terrence is also pissed. This doesn't show you that they're all working together. I don't know what will, but guess what? I'm going to jury, and it's going to be a very influential jury when I hit that jury, and she's not going to like it.
Okay, Terrence. I mean, yeah, Terrence is still sort of preaching a little bit of the gospel of Daniel, a little bit of like wanting her to show her cards and all of that kind of stuff. And everybody's just like, okay, sure. Like nobody's taking Terrence seriously.
Yeah. Who knew Terrence would be the biggest, maybe everyone would know Terrence would be the biggest bitter juror.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
No.
Another small thing, doesn't have huge ramifications yet, but could play into some things later. Michael is also going to start talking to Indy, Jasmine, and Terrence. Just going up. I know this is a foreign concept to a lot of the players in the house, but just going up and talking to them. And then he's like, "What? So what's up?" And they're like, well, I think Taylor's going to put me up because she wants to take a shot at Monty. And really what I think is that I have the numbers because I've got Terrence and I've got Jasmine and I've got Alyssa. And do I have you, Michael? Yeah, definitely. You'd vote for me? Yeah, totally. Don't worry about it. And so, yeah, I think she's going after Monty. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think she is going after Monty. Okay, great. I'm so glad you're on my side, Michael. He's discovered that all you need to do is speak to them and they think you're on their side.
Yeah, he cracked the code. I was so happy to find. I was like, yes, get him out of the HOH room. So he just casually talks to people, and then like it just happens. It's so natural.
He's been so confused about why they're targeting him over the last week after, he was talking to them and it seemed like they were on his side. And then all of a sudden Joseph comes up and he's like, no, they're targeting you, dude. And then he stopped talking to them afterward. It's the same thing that happened with Monty. And now all of a sudden he's, I think, discovering, wait, if I just speak to them, they're on my side again. They're just really fickle.
Convenience store for a reason, Michael. Like we've thought about this. If you're just there, like that's great. That's an easy option. Perfect.
Yeah. So again, it's a somewhat small thing, but it could become bigger depending on how the week plays out. So that should have been it before noms. But Joseph, he doesn't stop, and he came up with a new plan. That remember, he had agreed to drop the 5 swatters once the nominations happened. That he would start to back off of the 5 swatters. But he's going to go to Taylor and talk a little bit about those 5 swatters because he's been thinking. I don't think we should blow it up. I don't think we should. I think that we can make something work here. What I'm thinking is, what if I brought you in? Taylor? What if I help used it to keep you safe? If that makes you feel more comfortable, right? Like, and then if I get, because I can talk to them and start making them feel comfortable about working with you, start planting those seeds, and then I can basically just bring you in, and then they won't target you next week, even though you put Indy up. And she's like, okay, this is sounding okay to me. And he's like, yeah, because right now they're focused on Turner and Monty, which is fine. And because it what it means is that they're not focusing on us. And I want to make sure I'm getting this across. This is like an hour-long conversation that I'm condensing into as succinct of an understanding as I have of the actual plan.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that's a pretty good summary. I mean, I feel like that was Joseph's, the whole point from the beginning. Part of it was the thing was like, well, I can get them to target other people, or I can control, if they were to win, I can control the nominations. But then it starts to like move into something more. And part of me wonders if he's using this as justification for why he needs to continue to have relationships with the other side of the house, because that really seemed to be something that I heard him bring up over and over and over and over again throughout the course of the day, which was that, oh, well, people like Monty, they want to just blow it up and have side v side. But I really don't want to do that just yet. I really want to keep getting information from them. I really don't want them to freak out. I really want to make sure that we're in good with them. And he just continues to bring up this point over the course of the day. So I think that totally fits with, what he's trying to do in this conversation.
Yeah. And, obviously I can't say this with certainty, but we do see this a lot in the game, and it's possible. I'm going to throw this theory out there. It's possible that this is part of what Joseph's motivation is, that Joseph has never had to really openly break faith with anybody in the game yet. He hasn't had to be like, yeah, I betrayed you. Yeah, I went against my word. He has very much been all season long for 38 days, like, we are working together. I have got your back 1,000%. I'm not that kind of guy. And we've seen this in the past. Like, some people have a really hard time like having those conversations and just like losing those relationships. And this is something that happens in real life too, right? Like, there are some people that just like, they can't have people not like them. Like, they have this extreme drive to like not disappoint people or like have people mad at them. Again, not saying that this is Joseph's motivation, but if, as the day progresses and we're looking for any reason why things are happening, maybe keep this in mind as one of the possibilities.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think look no further than Joseph's goodbye message to Daniel as a perfect example of this. Daniel is out of the house, definitely not in jury. There's no reason for him to be like so sweet and nice in the goodbye message unless that was part of his motivation. So I think that's totally on point.
Yeah. So Taylor's coming around to the idea. Okay, maybe you don't need to drop the five swatters. if it benefits me. This is sounding all right. He says, and he goes through again a lot of other reasons why, beyond just the benefiting Taylor, why it benefits the whole alliance. And we heard the argument the night before that like, what's the point? Because it's not like they're ever going to nominate each other. But Joseph kind of like swerves around that a little bit. Oh, you never know. It's facade. It's masking things. You might be able to, like, if Monty and Turner go on the block and then somebody wins the veto, who else are they going to put up? I don't know. So Taylor's like, okay. And so then Joseph's like, okay, then now the only problem is what happens if somebody wins the veto? Because you can't nominate Alyssa and maintain your cover with the women. And she's like, oh crap, I didn't think of that. And he says, and I agree. You came in with this narrative, you shouldn't nominate Jasmine. And she's like, okay, well then what do? I could I nominate. They're expecting you to nominate Monty. oh man, well, so I guess we need to keep the noms the same. He's like, yeah, well, the only other options would be me or Kyle. She's like, well, I already told Alyssa that I can't nominate Kyle, and I don't want to nominate you. And he's like, yeah, so we got to keep the noms the same to keep your cover. I'll pull you in. Ideally, noms stay the same, and then I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna go prep the other side for like what I'm gonna tell them like, oh, she really likes me and she's giving me her whole game, and it'll prep them for what you're gonna say during nominations, and then we're gonna pull you in and you're gonna be a part of the alliance, and it's gonna be great. I'm gonna go talk to them now. So he goes and he leaves and he goes to talk to them.
Yes. And remember, previously also, the whole idea was that Joseph and Taylor have this fomance, which will allow them to spend a lot of time together and to talk a lot without revealing that they're actually working together. So, laying the seeds for this very strong relationship is something that has been discussed, not just today, but previous days as well.
Yes. So Joseph goes down and he talks to Jasmine and Indy, and he starts planting those seeds for Taylor to join the group because, hey, she really likes me. She's giving me her whole game up there. And Jasmine is like, damn, I should have come into this game single. What the hell? She's just giving you her whole game?
Yes, that's all it took. Jasmine. She's such
Easy.
a warped sense. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So he's down there doing that. Brittany comes up into the HOH room to talk to Taylor. So Taylor starts telling Brittany about the plan. So I know we talked about having the 5 swatters broken up, having this whole fake alliance thing break up. And I know Michael wanted that, and I agreed as well. But I just talked to Joseph, and he made a lot of really good points about why it should actually stay in place. And Brittany's like, really? Like, what points? She's like, he said a lot of things. It definitely made sense to me when he said it. I think something like, Turner and Monty are going to be targeted by them right now. And then if we win the veto and they don't want to put us up, then it really protects the whole alliance. And Brittany's like, I don't really understand that. I feel like, there's, Turner and Monty are probably not going to be very happy about that. They've kind of stuck their necks out for us. And it kind of seems like we're going to like leave them out, hang them out to dry. It sounds like this is maybe good for Joseph, maybe not good for us as a whole, maybe not good for us, you and me, Taylor. And Taylor's like, no, I'm telling you, it makes sense. It makes sense for all of us. It makes sense when Joseph explains it. I'm not explaining it right. I don't really know how to explain. You got to have Joseph tell you. You just got to have Joseph tell you.
Oh my gosh. And you can like hear and sense the exasperation in Brittany of just like,
yeah,
seriously. But like, and Brittany does this thing. I love it so much. She's like, well, maybe, I don't know. We could just like consider that like, maybe it's not good and we shouldn't do this. And you can tell she's just like so freaking frustrated inside that this finally, that what they had finally discussed about getting Joseph to pull out of this alliance, breaking this apart is now falling back. And Taylor is totally on board because, if Brittany really wants to work with Taylor and like build this relationship. And so to have somebody that just is going to be so susceptible to an outside influence obviously isn't good for Brittany's game.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm just waiting for Brittany to go tell Michael this and for him to be pissed off. And I'm just hoping that Joseph doesn't take Taylor down with the ship. And by the way, just generally, if somebody ever tells you, no, this is definitely a thing that we should do or a thing that is correct, I just can't explain it to you because I don't really understand. You got to have this if you got to have the person explain it to you, that means it's nonsense.
Yes, exactly. That means you don't actually understand it because you can't tell someone else about it. So if you don't understand it, is it really good for your game?
Exactly. So Joseph ends up coming in before Brittany can even leave and go tell Michael. And Taylor's like, oh, perfect. Joseph, can you explain the whole thing to Brittany? And Brittany's like, oh, yes, please explain it to me. And he goes on to explain it. And she, at the beginning, is kind of like, okay, but, You know, what about, Michael, and what about Monty and Turner? Like, what about like these things? But this is again about almost an hour long explanation. And eventually you can see Brittany is just like, okay, yeah, no, yeah, yep, I agree. Yep, that makes sense. That, you know what, Joseph, after an hour, I'm so glad that you took the time to explain this to me. I totally understand it now. Joseph leaves and she says to Taylor, like, yeah, I get it. Believe me, I'm definitely on board. I definitely agree. She did not agree.
No. No, definitely did not agree. I mean, that's because, again, the reasoning and the logic from Joseph's perspective, it benefits only Joseph. Maybe Taylor, maybe not even really, because the girls still don't like her, still don't trust her. So yeah, of course, Brittany is not going to believe this.
Yeah, and we'll get into this conversation in more detail later, but Brittany's later going to explain that she doesn't even necessarily think that Joseph is trying to play selfishly. He just doesn't stop. And even if he's doing something that he thinks is in the interest of everyone, his logic doesn't make any sense. And there's just no persuading him away from it. Like she tried to argue and inject any amount of logic into this conversation, and he kept just shooting it down and just keeps going and doesn't really let her get a word in, and she ended up just having to just nod and agree in order to end the conversation. So number one, she feels like she can't work with him because he's difficult to, he doesn't listen. And number two, the things that he's saying and doing are probably going to end up being detrimental to their games. So it's not great.
Right. And this is what I was saying about the fact that Joseph just really, really wants to keep going and keep playing, which works really well when you have to create a brand new alliance out of nothing to go against the majority in the house and flip everything around. And like that type of very intense, chaotic gameplay works really well when you're flipping things within the house. When you're trying to maintain the status quo, then it's so much. It's just so much. And it can end up having, like you said, a detrimental effect.
Yeah. So we eventually get to the nominations. Taylor is going to nominate Indy and Terrence for Eviction. And Indy's going to come up and talk to Taylor after the noms. And she's like, look, all right, I didn't want to say this. I didn't want to say this because I'm not that person. And I didn't want to say it before noms. I didn't want to influence your decision. But I just want you to know now that I have been defending you, Taylor, a lot. I haven't said anything about it until now because I'm not that kind of person that would just like tell you that I'm defending you. And it's really I've been defending you a lot this season, and there have just been so many times that I have defended you, and you didn't even know. And she's getting emotional. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, times that Indy defended Taylor. Okay, I got it. Remember that time that Indy said she was going to throw hot soup in Taylor's face? Indy defended Taylor by preventing herself from throwing hot soup in Taylor's face.
Oh,
right?
Big brain. Okay. Yes, I like that play. Okay, that totally makes sense. Okay, one.
Yep. And then there was also that time last week when Indy really wanted to vote Taylor out because she thought Taylor was going to be the reason she went home. And then everyone was like, no, you have to do it. And she was like, okay, fine. I will not vote Taylor out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. I think two super solid, concrete examples of how Indy is the number one Taylor defender.
Yes.
You did it. I knew it. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for highlighting those times because my God, this conversation, first of all, like you said, the whole logic of Indy saying, I didn't tell you, Taylor, because I didn't want to influence your decision because I want to know who my friends are before I tell my friends how I feel about them is such weird logic in and of itself. And then for Indy to go and say, I've defended you so many times, as we mentioned, we outlined them. But then the one thing that really got me was when Indy said, I was the reason why Monty targeted Nicole and not you. I'm sorry, what? Did I miss that day on Feeds? Did I misread everything that happened that week?
Yeah. She's the one that let Monty know that it wasn't Taylor. It was actually Nicole that was targeting him. That's just so she knows because otherwise Monty would have wanted Taylor out. But because Indy said that, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
And this is the thing too, is that it's like, I think she believes this.
Oh, Indy believes this.
Yeah. She's like genuinely getting emotional about the fact that she has been defending Taylor all season long. And really feels like she is being betrayed by a person that she has gone out of her way to defend.
I guess that explains it. But then when Indy complains so much, I don't know. Taran, make it make sense. That still doesn't make sense.
You know how there's a perception filter sometimes if we get 100 great comments about this podcast, they're like you are such a great podcast, and then there's one bad comment that's like,
right,
Taran, you're stammering while you're talking about comments on the podcast, you dummy. That's the one we're gonna see the most. And so I think that for Indy, and probably for most people, there's a bunch of times that she contributed to the treatment of Taylor, but a couple of times where she was like, meh, is she that bad?
I mean,
and those are the times she remembers. And she's like, hey, remember those few times that I did that? I've been defending her. Because the default for the house has been trash Taylor. So anything that is slightly below that default is like, I went out of my way.
It's all relative because of what the norm is. Okay, got it. Yeah. Well, and then I think also Indy absolves herself from any type of responsibility, for Jasmine's HOH, for example. When Taylor is talking about it, Indy is very quick to be like, not my, I didn't do it. I didn't put you on the block. So it's like, unless she directly has some type of transgression against Taylor, Indy doesn't count that as being against Taylor. So, okay, I can see it.
All right. Well, if you thought that was a fun conversation, Jasmine is going to come up and talk to Taylor right after. Jasmine comes into the HOH and she goes, you know what I realized today? What? We're the only two black women left in the house. Taylor's like, I literally just told you that last night. That's why I didn't put you on the block. She's like, oh, did you? Wow, well, yeah, I did. I guess I just didn't hear it right. Oh, well, I just realized it today. We've made history, right?
Oh my gosh. And not only that, but also we were the two, women HOHs. Oh my gosh. This is all brand new information to me.
Yeah. And it's like, and Taylor's like, yeah, that's why I was telling it to you last night. I was saying I was not going to nominate a black woman for eviction. And Jasmine's like, oh yeah, me too. I would never do that, except for that time I did nominate you. But that was because I had to, because of the situation. But after I did that, I said the same thing. Never nominate a black woman. Absolutely. By the way, question for you, just for fun. We've been talking about this totally off the record. We're just two gals having some fun chats. Who do you think should go to the top 5? Who do you think will go? Who's to the top 5? Who's your top 5?
And just for fun. Yeah, but just for totally off the record. I love also how Jasmine couches this as who do you think will be in the top 5, not like who do you want to be in the top 5. Like she's very distinct about okay, so then Taylor's like, well, from when we like walked in, right, is part of the conversation, like from the beginning.
Missed that opportunity. That would have been great if we had done it then, but now we should do it from now. From now.
Just now. If you could tell me your top 5 now.
Yeah. It's like it's a fun game.
Yeah, just a fun game that we could play. Just a game. And Taylor is stalling so hard. It was hilarious. Well,
wow.
Ooh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, my chips. Oh, like trying to do anything.
Let me just get my lays here.
Yeah.
So well, myself, not to be arrogant. And Jasmine's like, and Michael? She's like, yeah, and Michael. And maybe Kyle, he's good at comps, not Joseph. Well, I don't know if Joseph is as good as, I mean, I adore him, but I don't think he's as good at comps as Kyle. And then you, Jasmine, and Alyssa, you're obviously such a great duo. So yeah, there it is. That's the 5. That's solid.
Mm-hmm. And Jasmine then gives, her top 5, which is coincidentally, oh wow, it's almost exactly the same as Taylor's top 5. That's so wild. Maybe swapping out Kyle for Joseph, but otherwise, wow, we are on the same page.
Yeah, and hey, I wouldn't mind looking out for the people mentioned here. Yeah, this sounds great. Jasmine does want to bring one thing up. She says, "Okay, well, let me just tell you one thing. Now that we're, basically best friends, Amira did tell me something that when she was in the house that made me feel like you didn't see me as like a black woman." And Taylor's like, "What? No, absolutely not." Now, this is, of course, the conversation that after Taylor had spoken about colorism and being a dark-skinned black woman to Amira, and then Amira and Jasmine dunked on her for that concept. And Jasmine's like, "Oh, that's good. That's good. I just wanted to be honest and upfront with you about it. So when you watch back, you'll see why I'm, acting the way I do, because I definitely was under the impression that you had maybe said that."
It was like weeks ago. If you wanted to be honest and upfront, wouldn't you have talked to her about it earlier? Like, why did you wait several weeks to have this conversation? That was also not on my bingo card. I did not expect a conversation that happened weeks ago for Jasmine to re-bring up and talk to Taylor about. But here we are.
Yeah, and she said that's the only thing. Now we have fully cleared the air. That is the only thing for I promise you, nothing else.
Yes, we are now best friends.
All right.
Go, best friend.
So Joseph is talking to Terrence, who is still upset that he is on the block. And Terrence is carrying on, Daniel's standpoint, because Jasmine, Indy, and Alyssa are just completely lost in the sauce. So it's like, Daniel was like, "There's a 7-person alliance. These are the people in the alliance." But the women are like, "Nah, we've got 5 swatters. We got Michael now. We've got numbers." But Terrence is still like, they're working together. This is clear. You see these nominations. But he's still like, he's just talking to anybody about this at this point. He's talking to Joseph, and he's like, "You know what, Joseph? Please use the veto. I don't even care who you use the veto on. I just want Taylor to have to show her cards, and so that she's exposed to the rest of the house."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because Terrence is, obviously, like, Daniel and Nicole were onto something with the other group in the house. I mean, they hang out together frequently. The votes are coming down the same way week after week. And Terrence is just spouting the truth, but everybody is just like, "That's nice, Terrence." Just treating him like a non-entity.
Yes. So Terrence really wants Taylor to have to be forced to show her cards by not nominating Monty, essentially, by having the veto used in any which way. So Joseph is going to go up and talk to Taylor again. And he tells Taylor what Terrence just told him, that he really wants Taylor to have to show her cards. And he says, well, Terrence, he's going to out you. You know, because Terrence said that, maybe you do need to put up Monty. I think you'll just have to put up Monty because we don't want Terrence to win and expose you, right? Or you could put me up, right? Like me or Monty. And she's like, well, I'm not gonna put you up, Joseph. It only makes sense to put up Monty. What would put you up even do? That wouldn't make sense to anybody because we're in this fake show, man. So I guess I just have to put up Monty. He's like, but Monty's not going to want to touch the block, but he would be 100% safe. He's really going to hate it, though. He's really not going to like it. But you can't put up Kyle. You already said you can't put up Turner. You can't put up Michael or Brittany. You can't put up Alyssa. Can't put up Jasmine. The only ones you can do are Monty or me. She's like, yeah, I have to. You're right. I have to. It's like, what? What do you mean? Where's this coming from? Like, what do you mean you have to? How does that? You just said a thing and you just said, yes, I agree with the thing.
And like, no questioning really of the decision. Let's think through the potential ramifications of this decision. Let's consider, okay, I guess it has to be Joseph.
Or Monty, but Monty's really not going to want to.
Nope.
Oh my God. Oh man. Oh, but here's the thing. If I use the veto, if I pull one of them off, then you can't put me up. So, and she's like, well, I can as long as you don't win the veto. He says, well, then I won't win it. I'll leave myself as an option. Putting me up. Here we go. Hold on though. Putting me up works because you can say that you didn't want like your emotions to get in the way, that I was too distracting and that you needed to stop it now. Right. And then people won't think we're together. And that helps us in the short term and in the long term when chapter 2 comes, that they won't realize how close we are. And she's like, oh, that's a good idea.
Oh my God. I could not. Literally earlier that day, Joseph is like, I have to say how close we are and that you're giving me your whole game and that we're so close. And then in this conversation, hours later, we're the complete reverse. We have to show that we're not close. We have what?
Yes.
How does this make sense?
And like the whole point was that she was gonna get on Jasmine, Indy, and Alyssa's good side so that they don't target her. And instead, she's going to nominate their collective boyfriend. Yes. I mean, Joseph. And he's like, no, then this will show them that you were good to your word. You won't be breaking your word about targeting Monty because I'm also a big target. So you will be targeting a big target. And then you can be so shocked when I stay. And then they won't target you.
Yes, and that's the other thing is that they think, I mean, Joseph's logic is that this will put you in good with the women. In what way will this put her, they're going to be so betrayed when Joseph goes up because Joseph is the one who's talking to them. Joseph is the one that they feel is on their side. They don't talk to Monty. They don't work with Monty. That's why they want Monty is the one that's on the block.
Yeah, it's like they're going to be so confused and they're going to think like, oh, she's a savage. And like, oh, she's putting up her showmance. Like, whoa, that's so impressive. They're going to be so impressed. And she's like, wow, yeah. And he's going to be like, yeah, it's like going to be such good TV. It's going to be awesome. And like, oh, I'll be so shocked at the nomination ceremony. And then you'll be so shocked when I stay and then we'll play it up and it'll be so good.
I blame Daniel for this when he was like, it's going to be a boring season. So Taylor's like, take that, Daniel. It's not going to be a boring season when I put up my fomance and then pretend to be shocked when he doesn't go home. No.
This season just got boring.
Oh, no.
Exactly. Joseph and Taylor doing their best to make sure this season does not get boring.
She's like, well, I mean, Joseph, though, hold on. I don't want you to leave on my HOH. That would suck. He's like, oh, don't worry. I'm not going to leave. It's no big deal. She's like, okay, yeah, you're right. And they talk some more about what a great decision this is. They just really go back and forth. At one point, she's like, well, I'll still approach Monty first to ask him if he would be willing to go up on the blog. And I'm like, no, do not mention this to Monty a second time. If you mention this to Monty a second time, he will never forgive you. Luckily, they got so excited about the Joseph plan that went off the radar. But
That is a great way to describe it. They're so excited about this. Like
they're so excited for the rest of the night.
yeah, and like keep talking about how excited they are for this. Oh my gosh. And then like Taylor goes from we'll keep nons the same, okay, maybe a worst case scenario, if the veto gets used, then Joseph goes up to, I want the veto used, I want to put Joseph on the block.
Yes. Okay. So at the start of the day, I was like, okay, Taylor is talking about to the cameras, backdooring Alyssa, sending Alyssa home. This is so good for Joseph. Just a light push in that direction, and he can maybe get this working. And in addition to that, Kyle's screwing up. Kyle hasn't even been in this update. Barely will be. And you know why? Because he had a great day on Wednesday. He solidified a lot of relationships. He really locked himself in. He's in the best position, still is in the best position. However, he's basically taken the last 2 days off, Thursday and Friday. He has done next to nothing. He's been in bed with Alyssa all day, every day, hasn't been talking to people, and that has been damaging some of his relationships. By the end of the day, Michael and Brittany are going to start to talk about, like, maybe we do need to take out Alyssa because we need to keep Kyle on board. And that has left the door open for the Alyssa target here, because if Michael and Brittany are willing to potentially get on board, then and Taylor is clearly willing to do whatever Joseph says, the window is wide open for the Alyssa target here. And this is, like, in my opinion, the worst move, because I do think there's a good chance Joseph survives the block, even if he does go up. We'll talk about that. But even if he does, the bigger sort of mistake in my eyes here is that he's missing the shot at Alyssa and letting Kyle keep all of his power. So even if Joseph does stay in the game, it's like, what does that do for Joseph? Nothing. It doesn't put him in any better a position. In fact, it puts him in a worse position because of all the plotting that he's done to turn off his allies. What? It's like, okay, here's the window. Alyssa, he's been trying to target Alyssa for weeks. She comes right in front of the window. And he's like, all he needs to do is just pull her through the window and she's done. And instead, he was like, what if I went through the window?
Wouldn't that make for better TV? I don't know. Maybe he forgot Alyssa existed because, like, Kyle has, like, enveloped her or something, so they can't, like, see her anymore.
Do we need D&D to come on the podcast and explain that he just kind of forgot about targeting Alyssa?
Exactly. I mean, genuinely.
It's like, okay, I can get Alyssa on the block, or I can get me on the block.
Yeah. Let's see. Those two things are not comparable and do not have the same ultimate outcome. And I think especially because we on the outside know about this twist that's going to be happening next week. Mm-hmm. And so I think even more so, it just feels like such a dumb move.
Yes. So that's she's like, okay, so I guess you know, Joseph, I'm going to have to win the veto and take Indy down now. And he's like, yeah, you have to. And I think they keep saying this word. I don't think they know what it means.
You have to.
You don't have to.
I'm sorry, you have to.
Why are they playing a game where they have to do things according to how three dummies on the other side think?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's like, it's generous to call it a side. It's just three other people.
Oh boy. So Michael's going to come in and they're like, Michael.
Guess what?
Guess what? It's like, oh no, what's going on? Well, we came up with a pretty cool idea. So what's going to happen is that Joseph is going to be the replacement nom. And Michael's like, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah, it's gonna be great. It's like he's gonna be so surprised at the replacement ceremony, and it works because it'll allow like Taylor to keep her cover because she'll like be expecting her to nominate Monty, but then she'll nominate Joseph, and it'll be like, oh, I'm taking a different big shot, and they're gonna respect her, and it's gonna be great. Talk about a spicy season, right? And he's like, yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. That's wow. What a great idea you guys have come up with.
It was very reminiscent of last week when Michael was just listening to the other side, like come up with their ideas, and he's just like taking it all in. Just,
Yeah. You know when you talk to like a relative, maybe an older relative, and they're just talking, and you kind of don't really understand what they're saying exactly or why, but you know you love them and you want to be polite, and so you're just kind of like, yeah, wow, yeah, definitely. That was Michael in this conversation. He was just like, I do not understand a word you guys are saying, but if the end result is what you're telling me is that Joseph is going to go on the block and not me or anybody else that I care about, have at it.
Like, sure. Especially because, we know Michael's long-term game plan when it comes to who he wants to be, in the final five. So, like, to him, he's got a reason to be like, you guys are idiots. Why are you doing this? He just takes in the information for what it is and then just, okay, sure. Like, if this what's going to happen, I guess. I mean, also, this is, before veto players are picked, before the veto even happens, before the veto meeting. So, he can sort of think and digest all of this ridiculous information before any decision actively has to be made.
Yes. And unfortunately, again, like, I think when you're in that position, you don't then think like, yeah, now I'm going to like include this older relative in all of my plans because they're very easy to work with. Like, you're kind of just like, okay, they're going to do their thing.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. You guys have fun. Yeah, you go do that. And I mean, this ultimately culminates. It was finally, I was like waiting for the Brittany Michael conversation later in the night. They have a very long storage room conversation.
Yes.
We'll get to where we start to actually hear, him process all of this information, because we had the benefit as feeders to see it progress over the course of the day, and it didn't make sense to us. So then for Michael to all of a sudden be thrown into this conversation where he's being not told, hey, this is our thoughts, what do you think? But this is the plan and this will happen and we are doing this. It was because it's so firm in the way that they talk.
Yes. So they end up filling in the rest of the alliance as well. Monty and Kyle and Turner, and they're all like same as Michael. Like, well, okay. That's what you want to do.
Literally no pushback from a single person, really, in the grand scheme of things when it came to this decision.
Well, how do you push back on it? Like, there's nothing you can say.
I have no idea.
Because the problem is you don't even understand what the reason is. So you can't argue against the reason when you don't know what the reason is. It's why Taylor couldn't even explain it to anybody else. So Joseph says, okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start to tell the other side that Taylor's being really guarded with me to set the stage. It's like, this is the complete opposite of what you just did like 6 hours ago.
Yeah, exactly. It was, again, it was just so funny because then he's got the conversation with Jasmine where he's like, yeah, I don't know. She's not really telling me anything. She's not really, and it's like earlier you were just saying she was spilling her whole game to you. If the other side had just a few brain cells to rub together, like this should be setting off major red flag alarm bells in their heads. But like, okay, we're just gonna go along with it. Convenience store, baby.
He's like, I'm gonna have to drop my jaw to the floor when you nominate me. It's gonna be such a great moment. Like, oh boy. So a couple of other loose random things before we start to get to the final conversations of the night. One is that a crime has been committed. Alyssa has committed a crime against all mac and cheese that she decided to make. Was it genuinely just like 10 boxes of like mac and cheese?
And
Like-
then she complained why it took so long to cook.
And then like threw in like random bits of like
It's like some
green.
bacon and some, like like you just, the kitchen counter, whatever's left on the kitchen counter, and you just sort of sweep it in. It was like very much that energy.
I did see that the gif of Taylor walking up to the mac and cheese, looking in.
She's like, I'll eat my sushi in my HOH room. Thank you.
Just awful. Between that and like Terrence and Jasmine cleaning the shower and being all annoyed about like nobody helping them, and this is like the first time they've cleaned a thing in this house. It's like these people are like playing house for the first time in their lives.
So first of all, Jasmine, she like says to the cooking group, like, I'm gonna go clean the shower. So like they're busy doing other stuff, so that's why they didn't volunteer. And I knew, like, Jasmine's cleaning, she's like pretty quiet about the whole thing. As soon as she's done, starts complaining about how no one offered to help and she has to do everything herself, and they knew that she was in there. And but by the way, Jasmine doesn't ask for help. That's not her thing. Okay. Yeah. So she's never going to ask for the help. Okay.
And this was prodded by Taylor was like, hey, people that haven't been doing their part need to start stepping up. Which is, the reason that I think they're doing it in the first place. And then it's like, well, nobody's helping. It's like,
that's the point. You guys don't do anything.
Michael did it by himself a couple weeks ago with no prompting and didn't complain to anybody.
Yes, exactly.
Classic. Terrence is also going to take the opportunity to talk to the cameras and brag about how much grace and patience he has shown in the house. Mm-hmm. It's really like this house has been a testament to his temperament. He was raised right, and just so much grace, so much patience that he has displayed over the course of the season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I skipped that. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't. I was like, saw Terrence talking to the cams, listened to a bit of it, and was like, skip. So you can cover that. I'll just sit here.
That's about all we need to get into.
All right.
So we finally get to Michael and Brittany. They're going to talk in the storage room. And this is the first time that they've had a chance to talk. Brittany didn't even get a chance to tell Michael about the first iteration of the Let's Keep the Five Swatters Together plan before he was told about the, Joseph goes on the block thing. So predictably, this opens with, so if Joseph goes up on the block.
Yeah. Oh my
right?
God, I'm waiting for that. Okay, so let's just entertain the possibility.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to screw Taylor over. That's the only thing, right? Like we wouldn't want to screw Taylor over, but I mean, if Kyle and Turner and Monty were on board, it's out of our hands, right? Like the whole alliance. We just don't trust Joseph. He's doing so much. He's causing us so many headaches. We're not happy about this. And Brittany's like, yeah, I mean, I do think he's loyal to us, and Michael's, yeah, it doesn't really matter though. Like he's putting himself in a good spot and us in a vulnerable spot. So it doesn't matter what he's loyal to. Like, and he just can't be stopped. Like you can't talk any sense into him. So he's just going to keep doing these things, then it's bad for us. And but the only way we can make the move is if the rest of the leftovers are on board. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Right. If the rest of the leftovers are okay with it, and then they can also, if they think that it would benefit their relationship with the rest of the house as well, that is the reason why they would consider going forward with the move. I mean, one benefit for that is the fact that because because the group had come to the consensus that, okay, let's, look, let's just cut our ties with the other side. We're sick of lying, we're sick of playing. And Joseph is the one against the entire group, really, I guess apart from Taylor, saying, no, we got to continue. We got to continue. I mean, that's a point that they can work on. But also, Michael and Brittany consider the fact that if it's a double eviction next week, do they really want to make some big crazy move and then go into the double eviction looking vulnerable? So they think that they're in a good spot, but it is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Fragile. That good spot is very fragile, and so doing any strong move in one direction or another could knock them off where they stand. And so it was nice to hear them really spend a lot of time thinking through all of the options, not making any decisions, but look, this is what we could do moving forward, depending on what angle we feel is most beneficial to our game.
Mm-hmm. So they keep talking it through, and they're like, it's kind of frustrating. Like Taylor won't even put up Alyssa. Like we wouldn't mind Alyssa leaving at this point. And they start talking about the Kyle stuff. Kyle kind of seems like he's more and more in with Alyssa. They kind of feel like maybe they do need to get rid of Alyssa now in order to keep Kyle from straying. Brittany says, yeah, when I was talking to Joseph and Taylor earlier, I had to stop even trying to present anything to them, like any logical alternatives. They just they just started agreeing with each other and just coming at me with these points, and I just had to start like nodding my head and just like, yeah, absolutely. And they just kept pitching these wild ideas. And Michael's like, well, I do think Kyle would be down to take the shot. I mean, he was down to take the shot last week at Monty. They're like, okay, well, maybe we should talk to Kyle, see if he corroborates what Joseph is telling them about the other side first. And then maybe also see if Kyle floats the idea of Joseph leaving. And if he does, then maybe they can think about moving forward with the idea. They can use Kyle for now, but we can't take Kyle too far into the end game. He's too much of a threat. There's so many threats in their alliance. It's pretty frustrating. They need to figure out the right combination of when to take them out. And they really want to go to the final three with Taylor, but man, she's been really tough to work with this week. She's very inflexible, and she seems like she wants to make moves for TV. And like, it's difficult to like persuade her into not doing these things. And I don't want to be in a situation where she's like, oh well, this is what makes sense for us, but this move makes great television, so I'm gonna go over here. Man, if only we could get to final three with Indy or Terrence. I mean, we would basically just automatically get to the final two at that point, right? Like, long silence after they say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love Michael being like, if we could get to the final three with Terrence, we're in the final two chairs. Like, it's not even like that is what is going to happen. And I think that Michael and Brittany, like you said, because there's so many big threats and they all have pros and cons as to why it would be beneficial to take anyone out at a certain time. The first strike against the leftovers within the leftovers alliance, like if I was in their shoes, and because I think we think very similarly, they want to make sure that that is definitely 100% the correct person to strike at first. And I think Joseph is a liability, but because they don't necessarily consider him to be a threat to win, I think that's where some of the hesitation comes from. Is like, he's putting us in this bad position, but we genuinely like him. We genuinely want to play with him. And compared to someone like Turner, who they talk about having a photographic memory, that is more threatening to them. Monty is more threatening to them in terms of winning competitions and beating them at the end.
Mm-hmm. So Michael says he wants to talk to Indy ASAP and tell her that he'll use the veto on her before anybody else gets to her. Make it feel like he's on Indy's side. Try to pull Indy in as much as possible. Brittany says same. They're going to think this through over the next few days. This is an interesting spot for them, right? Now, obviously, it may not even be relevant depending on the veto outcome or anything like that. But I think the primary thing to make sure to remember is that they don't know that this weird double split eviction thing is happening, because if they did, I think they'd be a lot more hesitant to take this shot, because they're going to have a great opportunity to take a shot during this double thing. But as far as they know, if they don't take the shot this week, then they will probably have to do it. Like, how is Joseph going to end up on the block outside of them winning HOH, nominating Joseph, and doing it themselves? Outside of this situation, there's a reason why you should never nominate your allies when you're HOH, because it's a golden opportunity for people to flip on you by taking out your ally, because they are not HOH having to do it themselves, which means that when they take out your ally, you can't compete in the following HOH to retaliate, and they can compete in the following HOH, as opposed to if they wait a week or two, don't take out Joseph now, win HOH themselves, betray Joseph, nominate Joseph, have to get more blood on their hands by nominating someone else instead. Now they've betrayed people and they can't compete in the following HOH, and they're vulnerable, and they've pissed off the person who was on the block next to the person that they targeted. Versus saving the person who was on the block, winning them over by taking out the other target and flipping the house, being able to compete in the HOH, having a majority because you were on the side that the votes were, solid for, and the person that you just betrayed the most, who's still in the game, can't even compete in the HOH. That's why you should never nominate your ally. It is the best golden opportunity for people to flip on you. And there's some validity to this idea, because we've talked about it a lot. Going to 7 for Michael and Brittany is not a great spot for them. And especially if there are two options to take out this week, because Taylor won't nominate Alyssa or Jasmine, are Indy or Terrence, the two ideal people to bring toward the end. It's almost given even more incentive to do this.
Yeah, and I think especially if Indy comes off, if Indy stays on the block, because from my sense, I just get this sense that Michael really, really wants to keep Indy, and I think we're just gonna have to see ultimately what happens. I see feeds are down right now. Seems like veto players are being picked. Michael wants to win this veto so bad. He's like, yeah, I really want to play. I hope I get to play. I really want to play. Okay, you want another veto?
Yes, so that he can save Indy. And then if Joseph goes up, he's now saved Indy. Basically, the play would be, right? And the thing is, I don't even think it's that bad of a play. The play would be you pull in Indy, Jasmine, Alyssa, and even probably Terrence to a degree, because you're taking a shot here. And, you've got Kyle on board. And again, the key is you need to also be able to get Turner and Monty on board. And then basically you just flip the entire house on Joseph. Taylor is now either on her own or comes back to you. And just like that, you've got the bad players on your side, still probably going after Monty and them. And you can kind of ride that middle and be in a spot where you can continue to take out the bigger players and just kind of just stomp out the end game. It's not that bad of a play. The key is to get Turner and Monty on board. I don't even think that would be that difficult, because Taylor and Joseph gave up the whole play when they said, oh, well, the other side is targeting Turner and Monty. Who cares? And Monty is already pretty annoyed about this situation. And if he learns that not only was Taylor talking about putting him on the block again before Joseph volunteered, but that, Joseph's whole, reasoning is that Monty can go on the block against Turner, and then maybe something happens with the veto and they can somehow protect them all. Monty's gonna be like, that doesn't make any sense. What is he doing? And with Kyle on board, Kyle has a lot of influence over Turner and Monty. I think it's possible that they get everyone on board here. It's a move that could happen. That's a lot of pieces, and I would still say, knowing what we know, that there's this weird double thing coming up. Perhaps not the best move, because I think there will be more opportunities coming forward, and I think that that there are better plays knowing what's coming, but they don't know what's coming, and so who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing is that they're operating under the assumption that there's maybe a double next week. not in the sense that we know, but a traditional double eviction. And so I think that that's sort of the most that they're taking into consideration. Although there was a little bit of talk of, oh, what if there's a power next week or some other kind of twist? They started theorizing about that, but obviously nothing compared to essentially a split house, a split tribal council. So, that's something that I obviously would never cross their minds. And so how can they plan for that? How can they take that into consideration when they're planning their move this week? Look, I think it's ultimately, if I had to say right now, it's probably a low percentage chance that Joseph ends up out of the house this week, but it's definitely not at 0%.
So that's kind of where Michael and Brittany are standing for now. They're going to go and talk to Taylor for a little bit. She explains the plan. Now, she has already now talked to Terrence, and she's going to tell this story about 5 times over the course of the night. She's very excited. She's like, I talked to Terrence, and he was like, so are you going to make the move? Like, she's just so happy that she's tricking Terrence. It's like, who cares what Terrence thinks? Like, it doesn't matter. And she's like, I told him I was going to make a big cannonball move. And he's probably assuming that's Monty. But it's actually Joseph.
Oh my God, guys. It's so exciting. What great TV.
He's gonna expect me to not even make the move, but then I'm gonna make the move, and I can be like, see, I told you I was gonna make the big cannonball move. And then she also says, I told you guys I'd be bad at HOH. Right? I did tell you guys. They're like, what? She's like, I'm just like, you're safe. Oh, information? I don't need it. And I'm like, yes, Taylor, this is the best thing you've said so far.
But please tell me you're not just saying this, Taylor. Like, believe this about yourself, because yes, you have not handled this the best.
What I want her to do is to, instead of just being like, I guess I'm just bad at HOH, instead I would love for her to be like, okay, let's stop being bad at HOH.
Yes, right. Like, okay, if we've recognized this, what do we do with that information, Taylor? Let's use that to change what's happening so you aren't a bad HOH. It's not too late to turn things around.
Mm-hmm. So Turner's gonna join. She tells Turner the cannonball story. This was a little funny. They go through Taylor's fridge, and she finds some like steak in the back of the fridge. She's like, I guess I gotta make this. And Turner's like, is steak an oven food or an on top of the oven food? What is that called?
Has he cooked ever?
He's made Jasmine food.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, slop. Did he make some slop at one point in time? So
I'm sure, yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I can't remember if that was an on the oven.
I think that was an on top of the oven food.
Or
yeah.
was it in the oven? Okay, yeah. Not a stove. I've never heard of her.
So Monty joins. Taylor tells him the cannonball story. Monty is like, so do you want somebody to come down at this point? And she's like, yeah, I actively want all of you to use the veto. This will be so much fun. So now Monty and Turner are on board to like, okay, we're going to promise people we're going to use the veto on them. We're going to win. Monty starts talking about like, oh, maybe I can get back in with Terrence. Mm-hmm. They're all like, okay, like this is, we're going to use the veto. And so there are very few people. In fact, I think we're at nobody won't use the veto.
I think so. I don't think Kyle. So Kyle was with Alyssa like all day.
Yeah.
As you said, he's like taken a couple days. He needs a weekend. All right. He's gonna rest a bit. So I don't think he knows about the plan. Because this leftovers is essentially a leftovers conversation without Joseph, who I think was napping. Thank goodness. And Kyle, who was canoodling with Alyssa. But otherwise, yeah, that whole group definitely on board. Of course, the other side of the house is going to use it. So that would be the only question mark in my mind, but I he's going to use it.
Yeah, and different people are going to use it on different people. Some of them want to use it on Terrence, some of them want to use it on Indy, and they're back and forth again. Also, as about like which one of them should leave, because essentially whichever one they use it on, the other one is going to leave theoretically. And Taylor is still very much like, yeah, I'm targeting Terrence, but if you guys want Indy, fine.
fine.
Don't worry about it. So that's kind of where they stand. Now, Joseph also is going to talk a little bit about his, and this was a little earlier in the day, but in terms of like his sort of, I guess, the way that he approaches conversation. Sometimes he says he has trouble reading. He has ADHD, and he tells a story about like growing up, how it kind of went undiagnosed for a little while until it finally did. He never really took medication for it because he didn't like how it made him feel. And so he has trouble reading sometimes. And, this could be an issue for him in like question competitions. And he talks about that, really like all the more impressive, I think, that he is, I don't think quite a lawyer yet, but very close to it. I don't know exactly where that line is. I also don't really understand a lot about lawyers. But this is a very good conversation to listen to in terms of like helping sort of understand Joseph a little more. And I never want to attribute behavior in the house to anything that like this, but it is something that Joseph talked about, and I think, people, we knew about this. People knew about this beforehand, but he told sort of more people now, more people know. And so, something to maybe keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it helps to better understand why he doesn't turn his brain off. It just like keeps going and going and going and going, and why that's sort of why he's naturally inclined to play this way. So that makes sense. Regardless, volunteering to go on the block is still a bad move.
To be clear, we are not saying that having ADHD makes you volunteer for the block. That is very much not what we're saying.
Right. But in terms of the brain moving a mile a minute and, going back and forth between all these different situations and changing, his mind and going from the beginning of the day being like, oh my God, Taylor and I, we're so together, we're in love, blah, 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 whatever, to she doesn't tell me anything and she's going to potentially put me on the block, right? Like it helps to explain that, definitely. And I think also in that conversation, he talked about his schooling and how he was in a small private school because of bullying from 9/11, which was like very interesting to hear about. And then very, heartbreaking for him. And then to come to a public school. And then that was where it finally got, I don't know if it's still undiagnosed, or at least he was able to get, help for especially the reading comprehension side of everything. So definitely good for understanding him a little bit better.
Yes. And, I would recommend listening to the conversation that he has about this. I don't recall the exact time, but it was definitely interesting to hear more about Joseph. He's still he's very lovable, Joseph. Don't volunteer for the block. Stop telling everybody everything you're doing, and just take Alyssa out.
I know, seriously, that's all you needed to do, Joseph. Just a slight nudge. It's entertaining, but it's not the best gameplay.
Yeah. So that's where we stand right now. Again, the veto draw is likely happening as we speak. So it shouldn't really matter, though, considering everyone is on board to use it at this time. Now, it will be until Monday that the veto will need to be chosen to be used, and that the replacement nominee will be named. So there's a lot of time for this to change, and for Joseph to wake up and realize that, hey, maybe that wasn't a great idea. It's worth noting, we talked about this before the podcast started, they went to bed. Everyone. This all happened during the day. And they went to bed at a halfway reasonable hour.
It was wild. Like the only evening, late night chat was Jasmine threw out people's toothbrushes when she was cleaning. And so Turner had to go get a new toothbrush because Jasmine was just tossing things away haphazardly as part of the cleaning. Otherwise, game-wise, very, very much light comes to the late night conversation.
Yeah, you know how when people go on Survivor, it's like, well, obviously learn how to swim and learn how to make fire. Basics of going on Survivor. I think going on Big Brother, learn how to clean, learn how to be a human being in a house. You know what I mean? Learn how to cook, basics.
Is it a in the oven or an on top of the oven food? Learn those. Yeah.
If you're used to other people doing things for you, maybe just figure out exactly. Maybe you don't want to be on live feeds not knowing how to clean a bathroom or make mac and cheese or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. The basics.
Oh boy. So that's really what we have from the night. Maybe Joseph got some good sleep last night. Maybe he'll wake up and realize. Maybe Terrence will say like, "Wait a minute, what if she puts you up? That would really show her cards." And then he'll be like, "Oh, Terrence figured it out. Now we can't put me up. We need to put somebody else up."
Honestly, you never know. You never know what could happen. There's still a lot of time. We've seen things shift in a matter of hours. So who knows? But that's where we stand as of now going into the Saturday.
Yeah, and I am definitely concerned for Taylor. That said, I mean, there's a chance that this could work. It's like there's a chance that Joseph, because it really just anything you tell Jasmine, Indy, and Alyssa, they will just do. They will just accept. Like Michael has learned this. Joseph has been doing this. If Joseph goes on the block and says afterward, like, actually, I respect. I'm going to say I respect it from Taylor, and now we can pull her in. They'll probably be like, okay, sure. But she could have just done anything else and he could have said the same thing and they would have been like, okay, sure. And if they don't say, okay, sure, I just really, I'm just worried for Taylor.
Oh man. Yeah. I going into this week, I was like, oh great. Taylor's in a good spot. I mean, yes, of course, knowing the fact that we've got this split HOH and she can't compete theoretically, then, that's a bad spot, but it's okay. She's got a pretty easy week ahead of her. And somehow it's turning into not that.
Yeah. All right. So that's what we have from yesterday. I'll, of course, be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 24 live feeds, which should include the veto competition and results. So again, we'll see once the person wins, whoever wins the veto, that should then they'll probably lock in the plan for what they intend to do. And then also we might get some discussion about what might happen after the plan. So that's what we need to be on the lookout for here today. I'll be back tomorrow to update you on all of it. And of course, tomorrow night, there'll be an episode. I'll be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching the episode with all of you. And then after the episode, live with a podcast to recap it all. I'll also be playing some Goose Goose Duck tomorrow. We're back. So that'll be fun. And, check out all of the stuff going on. Check out the Among Us videos I've been posting over on YouTube. And find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. Liana, what do you got going on?
Okay, well, first, I want to say Brittany had one. I was like, Brittany is one of us because there's one comment that she made where she was saying they're really stretching it with the festival theme. Like, what is even Space Fest? And I was like, yes, Brittany, one of us. Okay, amazing. Anyway, that made me laugh. So I wanted to mention it. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Liana RHAP. Drag race is over. So I'm just chilling in the Big Brother waters for now, having a great time and enjoying all of the chaos that the season is bringing.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you all. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. And I will be back tomorrow to continue to be baffled by the choices being made in the house. I'll see you next time.
I don't know.